It's the Sports Peninsula podcast coming up. We're continuing to analyze the draft prospects for the upcoming 2025 NFL Draft being held in Green Bay this April. In this episode, we'll discuss the prospects at the linebacker position. This is a deep group with some day one potential. The Detroit Lions could very well be in the market for another linebacker with the potential loss of Derrick Barnes to free agency. We'll discuss the prospects and where we think they'll land on draft day next. Now, here's your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Rajinski Drew. We're talking draft prospects. We're talking about the linebackers, and I'm joined by Coach Andy Shield, my partner in crime here on the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coach, how you doing?
Doing well, Drew. Doing well. A position that's near and dear to my heart. Not a former linebacker by trade. My hands were in the dirt, as someone with my endomorphic body type would have, but. I have spent some time coaching this position with the Clintondale Dragons and the Marine City Mariners the last 26 years. So really love myself some linebackers. Looking forward to talking about it. It's a position group. We've got some talent. We certainly do. I am intrigued by some more than others as potential roster fits to our beloved Detroit Lions. Where we could have some needs at this position. And honestly, with Kelvin Shepard now as the defensive coordinator, a former linebacker, he may be looking to have a signature player that we could make our defense a little bit better and a little bit different, a different type of a linebacker that can be moved around the defensive scheme, which we've got several linebackers that we can talk about in that regard. So, yeah, I think this is a position group that is intriguing to us as Lions fans and as the league at large. We've got some really, really fun prospects to talk about, Drew. What do you think?
Yeah, it's you mentioned in the intro. I mean, if the Lions lose Barnes, it definitely becomes a position of need. And even if they're able to re-sign Derrick Barnes, you look at what happened. He missed most of last year with a significant knee injury. They lost Rodrigo halfway through the year to another significant knee injury. So and then Anzalone went out with a forearm injury, a broken forearm. So it was Jack Campbell and even Jalen Reeves-Maybin was hurt at a neck injury. So it was Jack Campbell and, it was free agents every couple weeks. Like David Long came in, other guys came in. It was piecemeal. But
Quan Alexander.
Yeah. I mean, it does speak to what a good coach Kelvin Shepard is. And I'm so glad he's a DC now because that position group came out of nowhere. It was without question the weakest group on that team 3 years ago. And they struggled out of the gate. The whole team did. Now, quite frankly, you could consider a position of strength.
Absolutely injury riddled all year long.
Yeah.
All year long. Sans Jack Campbell. I mean, the only one, everybody else sustained long-term injury or season-ending injuries. Like you said, you had named all those free agent acquisitions that came in and played significant roles. Zeke Turner jumped in and played kind of a safety linebacker hybrid type stuff. So, yeah, it really is. And I'm intrigued to see if Coach Shepard can get his hands on maybe one or two of these. One. Probably not going after multiple backers. I'd say if we get out, we go after one. But I'm not so sure it wouldn't be day one. We'll talk about that later, I think, Drew.
Certainly can. Hey, let's talk about our top prospects, Coach. Let's take a look and run them through 20-1, please.
Well, as Sports Peninsula podcast fans, as we do here with these position groups, we start with the bottom right corner and work towards our upper left with Power Echols, number 20 out of North Carolina. Number 19 is Kareem Reed out of Utah. Utah has produced some really good linebackers, some really good football players. Over at 18 out of the U is Francisco Mauagoa, and another fine athlete out of the U, and they produce some backers. Nick Martin out of Oklahoma State is in at 17, and at 16 is Cody Lindenberg from Sky Yuma and the Row the Boat Gophers in Minnesota. At number 15 is Kobe King out of Penn State. They play really good defense out of Penn State. Really good defense this year at Penn State. Kobe King was a big part of that. In at 15. 14 is Jamon Dumas Johnson out of Kentucky and Coach Stoops. And at 13 is Jay Higgins out of Iowa, another place that's produced some good ones. We got a fine Iowa linebacker on our roster by the name of Jack Campbell. Jay Higgins is a real good one. Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame in at 12. I think, Drew, you're going to be talking about him in here in a bit.
Yes.
Number 11, another linebacker, is the partner of Kareem Reed in Utah, is Lander Barton from Utah, another really, really good football player for Coach Whittingham and the Utes. Top 10, Cody Simon out of the national champion Ohio State Buckeyes in at 10. At 9 is Jeffrey Bassa out of Oregon. Going to be talking about him here in a little bit. And at 8, in our top 8, as we will feature, Demetrius Knight Jr. out of South Carolina is at 8. Walk on from UCLA, Carson Schlesinger is in at 7. That's gonna be a lot of fun talking about that kid. Another one that the Lions could be interested and intrigued by is Jalen Walker out of Georgia. He is more of your flex edge rusher, so that's gonna be a fun one to talk about there. His partner in crime, Smell Mondon Jr., is in our top 5 at 5. Chris Paul Jr. out of Arkansas and Ole Miss is in at 4. Our top 3, Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma, throwback linebacker there. He's fun to talk about and look at on YouTube, folks. A lot of big sticks from Danny Stutzman, the Sooner out of Oklahoma. Barrett Carter out of Clemson as our number 2. We've had some, linebackers. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. was up there for us last year in our top 5 out of Clemson. Well, his partner in crime, Barrett Carter's in at 2, and at number 1. And the Sports Peninsula Podcast linebacker big board is Mr. Jihad Campbell out of Alabama. And this, my friend, is the guy I am intrigued by.
Let's talk about him, Coach.
Well, hit us up, Drew.
Take
a second here, my friend.
Jihad Campbell out of Alabama, 6'3", 244-pound junior. So much to like. Your 5-star recruit out of Ariel, New Jersey. He went to the IMG Academies, an alumnus there. 4.5 240 time. And oh, by the way, this is Combine Week this week, is it not, Coach?
It certainly is. Festivities kicked off today.
Yes, indeed they did. This is February 25th. We're recording this, and absolutely it kicked off. So we'll see if he can improve on that time. That's an outstanding 40 time, though. He's a converted linebacker. He's being recruited as an edge rusher originally, so he's a converted linebacker. So you got to like that he's got that in his back pocket too. 2024 All-American, 2024 All-SEC, 117 tackles last season, 15 and a half career tackles for loss, 160 career reps as a rusher/edge linebacker, and over an 1,100 plus reps as a box linebacker. Coach, he brings everything to the table that you would want in a linebacker, the versatility, etc. Let's talk about what you like about him.
Well, he's got a long, lean frame that allows him to be a constant disruptor, whether he's in the box, which he is normally. He's normally a box linebacker. He's got that great length to help take away pass windows, and a guy that is very rangy and long, and plays long and rangy. So he can tackle to tackle, sideline to sideline, give you everything you want there. He's got that, like I said, a lot of bend, and is tremendous athlete. There's some clips when they play LSU where he blurs past Will Campbell, who's the number 2 offensive tackle on the Sports Peninsula Podcast big board. He just blurs past them, absolutely blurs past them, into the quarterback and Stax Nussmeier. Guys has got all sorts of just twitch and great bend, is a constant disruptor. He's got outstanding. He's outstanding in coverage and very, very comfortable playing off the edge. Like I said, those are those attributes we just talked about. When he beat Will Campbell, and he's also very comfortable dropping, making plays, as a pass cover guy as well. Great speed to track cover and recover and close. And those are the attributes you need as a linebacker, Drew, is you've got to be able to kind of, sift through and have your keys in your reads. You have to trigger down hard and trust yourself and have great pursuit. You've got to be able to close in on your target, or if you make a mistake, recover and get to where you need to get to be able to affect the play. He's outstanding. He's got all the attributes that you would want in that area. Explosive, heavy tackler, very efficient tackler too. Very low whiff rate. Does not swing in this much and miss too many tackles. He's got great bursts as a blitzer. He's a DC's muse. And that tremendous alignment versatility just really provides a lot to a defensive coordinator, Drew. This is a guy that a lot of, at least the current algorithms, there are some algorithms that have him in and around pick number 28.
Yeah, and
he would be an individual that, barring, where we stand in some free agent areas, in roster areas with linebackers, would be a guy I could see and would be all about Brad Holmes moving up to acquire if need be. There's also a great potential he could be in and around there. This is not a glory position in the NFL anymore. Long gone are the days where linebackers are Quentin Coryatt's being drafted second overall. That doesn't happen anymore. So, these guys are drafted typically middle back end of the first round. It's kind of it's the running back of the defense, so to speak, and their draft kind of demise. But I tell you what, Drew, this is prospect A that I would really love to see the Detroit Lions go after. What are some things though that we need to see him work on?
Yeah, you almost hate talking about because there's so much to like, but there's always improvement and always some things that can be worked on. See, he can get caught tackling high, and when you see it on tape, and you got to be careful of that because let's face it, tight ends, wide receivers, and running backs like a Derrick Henry or guys like that, you're going to lose leverage, and they're gonna be able to push forward through you for another 3 or 4 yards if you get caught like that. So that's something we noticed on tape. He needs to work on that a little bit. He does get caught in between a lot versus running quarterbacks. He'll bite. Yeah,
dunk it over.
Exactly. So it's not, that's something he's going to have to work on, and he can't. And really, and this is kind of a byproduct of that because he's often too aggressive in his attack phase. So this is where what you want to look at on tape is his gap discipline, really, and overall it's pretty solid. But he's a very aggressive player. When you're that aggressive, there's going to at times you're going to miss in terms of coverage. So somebody's got to work on it. He does struggle with good climbers on the offensive line. So when those old linemen get to the second level, that can be a problem because it almost seems like Coach gets a little tunnel visioned and maybe loses sight of that a little bit because he's so focused on the ball carrier. He can kind of get caught a little bit. So he's got to watch that. His edge technique, kind of pedestrian, and he's really too reliant on his athletic ability. So if the GMs are looking at him on tape, they're going to have to be convinced. And I would be saying Brad Holmes would have to be convinced that, yeah, we can work with him. We can coach him up. We like what he's got. We can coach this up because he's got so much talent. But, yeah, talent alone isn't going to get you through in the NFL. We know that. Will he be as efficient of a tackler in the NFL? Well, he's got to clean this stuff up, Coach. And I think I'm confident he will. I love what I see on tape of him, and I know you do too. Jihad Campbell, if he's there at 28, wow, he's in play. He is definitely
on the list for me. Then he's not the only Alabama Crimson Tide, I really am. I'm really intrigued, but I'm really intrigued as well.
So we shall see. It'll be interesting to see what he does at the combine. I'm not 100% on if he's participating fully. I'd be surprised if he was, but we shall see, and we'll certainly see his pro day coming up. So keep an eye out for Jihad Campbell, no question, Lions fans and NFL fans around the league. Coach, who do we got number 2?
We got Derrick Carter out of Clemson. Last year we said we had Jeremiah Trotter Jr. He was featured very high in the Sports Peninsula podcast linebacker preview of last year. This year it's Derrick Carter, 6'1", 230-pound senior from Sewanee, Georgia. He was a 5-star. So this is part of those great recruiting classes Dabo Sweeney brought in in the national championship era of Clemson football. 4.55 40, so he runs well. It's not elite speed, but he runs very, very well. 52 games played for the Tigers, so he's a veteran. He played a lot of football, played a lot of linebacker out there for the Clemson Tigers. 3-time All-ACC selection, 2-time All-American, 233 career tackles, 31.5 career tackles for loss, 12.5 career sacks. This is the most intriguing part for me. So this is between pass defenses and pass breakups. This is balls where he was targeted. All right. And he'd either defended the pass successfully or broke the pass up himself 45 times. That's a very high number. We won't talk about that number that high for any other prospect on our preview here today. This is an elite cover linebacker prospect and a guy that's going to bring a lot to the table to a defense that way, Drew. What are some things that he really, really does well? What's going to get him drafted? Likely somewhere between day 1 and day 2.
Lots to like, definitely. Three-phase linebacker. He can defend the run. He can defend the pass. He can blitz. And it's on tape. You can see it. Very, 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 very good linebacker. Outstanding cover linebacker. The 45 pass breakups and defenses tells a lot. A prolific playmaker at Clemson. He's a physical block destructor. That's key. We just talked about Campbell maybe struggling at the second level at times with old linemen. Barrett Carter is at least technique-wise able to handle that better. And he's an explosive, impactful blitzer. So when he sees a spot, he takes it. He's got tremendous movement skills, very agile, good inside-out tackler, and really he's a Brent Venables product. And you like that because that means he's very coachable, right? So much to like about Barrett Carter. He's a Swiss Army knife really at linebacker, and that's what I like about him a lot, Coach. What do you see that he needs to work on, or some red flags?
Well, just as we loop into that, Brent Venables is now the head coach at Oklahoma. Was the defensive coordinator for LSU and for Clemson in their heydays of winning a lot of championship football games, or national championship football games. And he just sings the praises of Barrett Carter and what kind of player he is and what he brings to the table in your locker room as well. So, and that is a guy that's pumped out some really, really fine players. So that is a big feather in his cap. But yes, he does have some things, Drew. Some of it's plain as day. He's undersized. Yeah. He's undersized. He's 6'1", 230. He's undersized. That's just pure, plain and simple. That is going to be at times an issue. Someone's going to climb on him and take him for a ride. He's going to get washed down. He is going to get blocked at times. And that is something that, he has got to continue to try to perfect and avoid. And one way in which he can really make sure and solidify himself long-term in the league, he's got to be a zone cover perfectionist. A guy that is just so elite as a cover linebacker that you want him on your roster. Because he certainly is a better cover LB than he is a run stopper at this point in time. Can he be an effective tackler at the NFL level? He can. He certainly can. He's got a higher whiff rate than Jihad Campbell does. Yeah. He has but it's not gross. It's not, there are some that are a lot more cautionary than Barrett Carter, Drew. But can he be an efficient tackler, and does he have the frame and tackling ability to be an every down linebacker instead of a sub-package nickel dime type guy? Those are the things that Barrett Carter is going to have to answer for himself, because someone is going to take a run at him, perhaps on day 1, definitely early day 2.
Yeah, and the thing, and you're right. He really resembles a linebacker being a nickel package. But like let's talk about the Lions, for instance, they're typically in that kind of alignment most of the time, just because it's a passing league now. And I think a lot of teams can say that. So that pigeonholes them a little bit, but not terribly. There's some teams that are not going to have that kind of alignment on every down, and that would probably rule a guy like Carter out. But a lot of teams still would have a great interest in Carter just because he does fit that alignment to the T. So Barrett Carter is an outstanding linebacker.
Both of these prospects play well against running quarterbacks. They both do. So that would be another reason why we need to consider a guy like a Barrett Carter. I don't think he's going to be at 60, which is our second pick. So, that's there's a big void in there. So if we traded back and acquired more capital that way, could Barrett Carter fall into play there? Yes. I don't know that he would be somebody that would be extremely high in the Lions draft board, but he certainly fits the linebacker profile that they need, which is a cover linebacker that knows how to defend the run, especially a running quarterback.
Lots to like about Derrick Carter, Coach, no doubt. We look forward to seeing him at the draft. Let's talk about the number 3 guy, and I'll take this one. Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma. A little bit bigger guy, 6'4", 243-pound senior, a little more prototypical size at the linebacker position. He's from Windermere, Florida. He played 47 games at Oklahoma. He's a 2-time All-American, 2-time All-Big 12 player. Oh, by the way, last year, 2024 All-SEC, so he can get it done. 100-plus tackles in each of the last 3 seasons. 376 career tackles, 37 career tackles for loss, and over 2,000 career reps as a box linebacker. So you know what you're getting with Danny Stutzman. That's a guy that's a tough-ass linebacker that plays in the box, and there's a lot to like about him, Coach. Talk about what you do like.
Yeah, this is 21st century Boz right here. He's a box linebacker. He's a Teddy Lehman type. Another Oklahoma student. That's a guy right there. You see that stance. I don't like the hands on the knees. We don't teach that. That's not. You never saw a Dragon or a Mariner with his hands on his knees on a linebacker. But I guess it was acceptable. Maybe it was just he was posing there. Who knows? But nonetheless, that's his alignment, folks. He's a guy that's square behind, kind of behind a stack knee, either behind a defensive tackle or over a guard. And in the middle of the formation. So, I mean, that's where you're going to see Danny Stutzman line up. And he has great big frame. He's got a Jack Campbell frame, 6'4", 243. Yeah. Big NFL frame. Great size for the NFL. He was a prolific tackler in college. When you get north of 300 tackles, you played a lot of football, number 1, and you were very productive, number 2. And he really didn't. He didn't miss hardly any games to injury. This is a guy that's really held up and stood the test of time. So that's a frame that can really take the ding because he certainly, brought the wood, a lot. This is a prolific run stopper. We're talking about Derrick Carter being an outstanding pass cover guy. And we were talking about Jihad Campbell kind of being that DC's muse that can be kind of used all over the place. This guy is a run stopper extraordinaire. This is a guy you want on your roster to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Type of player he is. Very good functional athlete. You're not going to play high-level Big 12 SEC football if you aren't. Sideline to sideline tackler. He is your old school linebacker, Drew. Very stout and adept at block destruction. You're going to be when you're good defending the run. Another strong, heavy tackler. His whiff rates are maybe a touch higher because he, really was, tasked with a lot of power run. But he extremely, extremely efficient, nonetheless. He's got some experience, outside of the alignment a little bit. He's lined up at the edge a little bit. He's lined up in the slot and done some, press cover type stuff. But he's not without his flaws, Drew. What are some things he needs to work on?
Yeah, he's another one that needs to work on being a next level block destructor. Now we do like his size and his strength. So
it's got to be a forte of his.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's less of a problem for him than maybe some, the previous 2 guys we mentioned, including Campbell. They definitely need. It's a technique thing too, because let's face it, any old lineman at the second level is probably about 300 and some odd pounds. So you better, and he's got some momentum going with him. So you got to have some technique because you're not going to overpower a guy like that. You're going to have technique. We got to get that for Danny Stutzman. He can get over aggressive and over pursue, and again, that's, I think that's coachable, and correct me if I'm wrong, Coach, but I mean, at the same time, the player has to make a commitment to being disciplined, having gap discipline, and that's going to be important. So that's something he's going to have to work on. Got a bit higher whiff rate than Campbell and Carter. We mentioned Derrick Carter earlier too, but yeah, little bit higher whiff rate, but Coach kind of alluded to that. What he was asked to do and being in the box most of the time, little bit different scheme in terms of what he's played in versus Carter or Campbell, like we previously mentioned. He's limited in the blitz and pass rush phases, so he's predominantly a run stopping, first and second down linebacker. I'm not sure if he didn't have the opportunity there at Oklahoma, Coach, or not, but we just didn't see a lot of that there. So that's something that he could work on and maybe make that part of his game, which would be huge. He's definitely a better run stopping linebacker than a cover linebacker, which is fine. You know what you're getting with him. And he likely projects in the middle, or at least maybe the strongest side, but I would say more in the middle, because when you're strong or weak side, you're often being asked to either rush the passer or drop back in coverage. So I see him more in the middle. Needs to develop his versatility as a linebacker. And there you go. Right now, that's where he's kind of being profiled at, which is why he's still a solid third. But that's why we're really not talking about how he might overtake Carter or in the draft. I don't see that happening necessarily, Coach. But a very good football player here who has a higher ceiling, maybe. I think his floor is he's going to be a very solid NFL linebacker. His ceiling, he might become an All-Pro.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head, Drew. But if anything happens to his rating, it's not going to go up to those guys. If anything, it'll come down a little bit because he's not able to I guess, convince people that he can be that versatile linebacker, that he is a run stopper, that he's a guy that you got to get off the field with sub packages or with subs on third and long or in your blitz packages because he's just, so one dimensional. That's not the knock on him per se. But, again, we talk about Barrett Carter being a Brett Venables product. Danny Stutzman is a Brent Venables product. That's his current head coach. So, he wanted him back there for a reason and playing all those reps that he got in the box. And that's because he's such an outstanding surveyor against the run. And that's going to, the phase of the run game as a phase is not going away. In fact, we saw the Philadelphia Eagles kind of bring it back. And we know who we are as an identity as well. So, in Baltimore, I would say runs the football fairly well between their running back and quarterback too. So you got to defend the run. Danny Stutzman's going to have a nice spot in this league.
Definitely looking forward to seeing him in the league. Let's talk about our number 4 prospect, Coach.
We got Chris Paul Jr. No relation to the San Antonio Spurs guard, Chris Paul. It's not his kid or anything like that. This is Chris Paul Jr., a different Chris Paul Sr. Is dad here. But he's our number 4 linebacker here on the Sports Peninsula Podcast linebacker preview. He's from Ole Miss, University of Mississippi. Old Buddy Broski, former student of mine, is the safeties analyst for the Rebels. And he's got a fine one here in Chris Paul, 6'1", 235 junior. So a little bit more of that Barrett Carter size linebacker, Drew.
Yep.
Comes from Cordell, Georgia. Transferred from the University of Arkansas. Played quite a bit of football there. Played multiple years. He was an All-SEC and All-American at Arkansas. Or he was freshman All-SEC and freshman All-American at Arkansas. He had got on the field early there for the Razorbacks. Yeah. 2024, he was All-SEC and All-American at Ole Miss. So he's had a fine career at 2 SEC schools. 1,400 career box reps. So this is another guy that's, behind the formation a lot or in front of the formation a lot and playing in there as a run stopper. By alignment. 225 career tackles, 27 career tackles for loss, 11 TFLs this past year. So he was very productive and a big play guy, and a disruptor in the backfield for the running Rebels this year. 9.5 career sacks. So this is a guy that's impacted the game from the blitz and off the edge. Chris Paul Jr., David's a nice looking prospect.
Yes, he is. And we a lot to like about him, Coach. He's an instinctive, natural box linebacker. You touched on it earlier, how he plays in front of the coverage. He's a box linebacker. He's very instinctive, got a high football IQ, low whiff rate. So he's a sure tackler. You got to like that. Outstanding special teams player in the SEC. So, multifaceted. And is going. When you see that, this guy's going to help me immediately. He's going to play immediately. He's going to likely be a rotational linebacker at first, possibly starting, but definitely is going to help you right away on special teams, and that's a plus. Takes command as a communicator. He's the quarterback out there on the defense for Ole Miss. That's a good trait to have going in the NFL. He's an excellent tackler, as previously mentioned. He's an explosive downhill tackler. You got to like that. When you play in the box like that, always a plus to be aggressive, right? Gets good leverage as a block destructor. I like that. And I like that considering his size, Coach. And you can see it on tape. He can get it done. He's an aggressive guy. And he's a very good man. He's got very good man cover skills. That's impressive. He's an intriguing prospect, Coach. What do you see are maybe some red flags?
He in some ways, he plays a little stronger than maybe Barrett Carter does. He might be a little more physical in the run game. So to speak. But again, he's got that same knock. He's undersized. And he's going to struggle with the good climbers, the guys that can really get to the second level and mow and grade road, so to speak. He's going to have a tough time coming out of those blocks or getting underneath those blocks or coming over the top of them. It's going to be a work in progress for him at first. Because he's not, he's going to be used as a box linebacker. This is, his number one role. He's not as versatile as a Jihad Campbell. He's not. He's a box comfortable linebacker, not near as productive, outside of it. And so he lacks some of that alignment versatility. And that probably is going to not suit him well in regards to his draft slot. That being said, his athleticism and it really, if you look at a Stutzman and him, which one would you rather have? Would you rather have the home run hitting, run stopper extraordinaire, or a prospect like this that's a little bit more moldable, but they both are box-heavy guys? You know what I'm saying, Drew? Yeah. So I just wonder what it's going to do to their draft prospects as far as slot. Can his man cover skills translate in the NFL? Well, hey, if they do, then he's got a job for a long, long time, because most DCs are man cover guys. So, that is something that he has to be able to do well. And does he possess enough functional athleticism to establish himself as an NFL starter? Is this a guy that's going to get drafted on day 2 and impact the roster immediately and get a second contract? Or is this a guy that, is kind of a process football player, in the end? Time will tell. Chris Paul has all the athletic intangibles and the physicality to be a great football player, though.
Yeah, and this is where, and I'm curious where you kind of see him slotting. I see him possibly going as high as the second round and possibly slipping back to the late third.
Yeah.
Depending on, it's going to depend on team needs, because now you're talking about very specific skill sets. And like you said, if you want the bigger, more aggressive tackler, Stutzman's your guy. If you want the more versatile guy in the box, well, then Paul's your guy. It's going to depend on the team. So that's where I think his draft status his window's a little wider just because of that. But it's not a knock on him in terms of his athletic ability and ability to play football. I think he's a very good football player. How do you see him?
Spot on. I'm 100% in agreement with you. He's getting drafted Friday. He's going to get picked on Friday. He could be in the second round. It could drift later into the compensatory areas of the third. I would be really surprised to see him go into the, if he did go day 3. If he did, I think it's the fourth round. And early at that. He would go on those boards as one of the best guys still out there, because he's got tremendous athletic talent and he's been prolific. He's been great at Arkansas. He was great at Ole Miss. So Chris Paul's gonna definitely get a shot.
No doubt about that. Let's talk about the number 5 guy, Smile Mondoon Jr. out of Georgia. Is it Smile or Smale? I've heard both. Smale Mondoon out of Georgia, 6'3", 225-pound junior. Very good linebacking prospect. 5-star prospect from Dallas, Georgia. The number 1 outside linebacking recruit in 2021. 4.46 40. Gotta like that. That's elite speed right there. Has experience as a defensive back. Go figure. Played in 51 games at Georgia. 1,200 plus reps as a box linebacker. 213 career tackles. Wow. The athleticism jumps off the charts for a Mondon coach. What do you like about him?
Well, you can just that previous clip too, and you can see it in this one as well. I mean, just look at that sinewy body type. You can see it in both. You can see it in both clips. I mean, he's a long, lean, chiseled frame. 4.46, Kirby Smart, stud football player. This is another national champion. Guy's been on national championship football teams. He has outstanding speed. He's the fastest linebacker we've talked about so far. He has got sub 4.5 40 speed. Hope he gets to prove that out over at Lucas Oil too. In the combine. Excellent sideline pursuer. The Georgia Bulldogs have produced some fine linebackers. Some real good ones out there have played for this school, and he fits that billing of the type of athlete that those players were. And, he's really possessed those skills, of pursuing from sideline to sideline. Not every linebacker is like that. Some are more what we call pluggers, which are guys that are more linear and play in front of them. This guy can go from both corners of the field. Instinctive and natural linebacker. It's what he was. This is that he plays very fluidly, very confident player, tremendous functional athleticism, super high upside as a blitzer. When you're that quick and that twitchy and that long and that lean, you can do a lot of different things. He's been a good finisher. He's got a low whiff rate. He's a product of that Georgia Bulldog defense and all those phenomenal players, the vast majority of them which play for the Philadelphia Eagles now, or so it seems. Watch who takes him. Watch who takes him, because this kid's alignment versatile. He's kind of rarefied air as far as an athlete, Drew. Really, really intriguing guy. Very, very, very. I've seen the Lions. I've seen him on mock drafts, drafted by the Detroit Lions. I can understand why. What are some things, though, that are probably not going to get him called on Thursday?
Yeah, so he's got a very lean and almost slight frame for an NFL linebacker. He looks more like a safety when you look at that.
Like a receiver.
Yeah, exactly. Make no mistake, he's 6'3", 225. However, that is pretty light for a linebacker. So, but I think because of his frame, he may be able to help himself out a little bit in the weight room, maybe at the dinner table a little bit too, Coach, without sacrificing the speed. That's the key.
See the nutritionist.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure the NFL has a nutritionist on every team, I would think, or 10. Way too reliant on his athleticism, though. Again, that can lead to bad habits, and that's the concern here, because that's not going to get it in the NFL. And quite frankly, I'm surprised. Really, you watch him on film, he's able to get it done in the SEC. So I mean, that's impressive stuff. But he's got to make sure he doesn't stray from his technique. He's got to make sure he's always getting better. He's a smart player, and I think he can do that. But he's definitely right now, that's something he's got to work on. Needs some technical refinement, much like I just was discussing. NFL block destruction, that will be an adjustment. That could be an understatement. And if you get Penei Sewell pulling around the outside, look out. You got to be able to handle that, and that's a lot to handle. Maybe that's too much to ask of anybody, but you get what I'm saying. He's got to get better with that. He could really add elements to his game as a more technical rusher. And I see, obviously Ife Malafon was a safety in Detroit, but I see a guy like that similar frame that could be that kind of linebacker where you can blitz with him. Not necessarily have to line him up on the edge either, more of a zone type package. So put him in the box, let him line up in the zone blitz. I like that. I think he's got that skill set there. It will take time to adapt as a run stopper in the NFL for him. Again, he's got to get the feel for that. Again, you got to handle the blocking at the second level. You got to handle the speed of the game. But he's athletic enough to be able to do that. But, making sure he's processing that quickly and being able to handle those second level blocks. Can he get off blocks? There it is. That's the big question. Coach, on tape, did you see anything that really concerned you, or is this just something that you think you just got to kind of refine?
Well, yeah, I just think that's going to be the adventure for him, is the physicality of the NFL, and especially the NFL blocker, how athletic they are, how long they are, and how able they are to climb and get on top of you and take you for a ride. And that it's something that, that Jack Campbell struggled with it. And he's a real physical linebacker. They had a lot of pedigree as a block destructor coming out of Iowa. So it's something that you look at a 6'3", 225-pound guy that is built more safety-like, wide receiver-like, and many, his body type is that way. How he's going to be able to respond. It's got to be with great technique. And here's to him being able to do it, because I tell you what, I wouldn't call Smell Mondon Jr. feast or famine. I think there's going to be some good football played by him. He could be a prolific special teams player at the very, very least. So, because his athletic ability is superior. It's superior to almost everybody, sans Jihad Campbell that we've talked about so far.
Yeah, and that's where those numbers like the 4.46 40, the combine numbers, pro day numbers are going to help a guy like Mondon a lot, definitely. Let's talk about our next prospect, Coach.
Well, like Tate Ratledge and Dylan Fairchild, where we talked about two Georgia Bulldogs going back to back when we were talking about our guards a couple of weeks back, a couple of episodes back. Our number 6 linebacker prospect, we aren't going too far from Athens, Georgia. We're probably just going across the dormitory hallway, so to speak, to talk about Jalen Walker, our number 6 linebacker, Drew. Out of Georgia, as we said, 6'2", 245 junior. Different type of linebacker than Smal Mondon. A little bit different here. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. He's a 5-star out of Salisbury, North Carolina. Dad was the coach of Catawba College at that time. So that's where Catawba is located, is in Salisbury, North Carolina. That's where he grew up. 4.5 40. He's the 2024 Butkus Award winner. So he's the nation's top linebacker as voted by the media and those that vote for the Butkus Award. 2024 All-American, 2024 All-SEC selection, 18 career TFLs, 12.5 career sacks. So a lot of plays in the backfield. We're talking about 30.5 plays in the backfield. He has spent 47.5% of his reps at college as a rush linebacker on the edge. That is where he spent almost half of his reps.
Interesting.
In the other half, almost half, slightly underneath, 44.7, came as a box linebacker. So this is a guy that's played both of these. This right here is replacing, that is Derrick Barnes. That is Derrick Barnes right there. That is exactly who Jalen Walker is. What does he do well, Drew?
A lot. Excellent speed translates to game speed. So that's it. You can type like, coaches often he taught. I used to be a big combine guy. Now I'm not so much because you don't play football. Football isn't a track race. You play football in pads and helmet. It's great to have the measurables, but it's got to translate to the field and pads. This guy's game does, no question about it. Outstanding rush skills. He's a big-time rush linebacker to output at Georgia. Like Coach noted, nearly half of his reps came as a rush linebacker. I mean, that's an edge rusher. That's outstanding. Outstanding flexibility and functional athleticism. Got to have that if you're going to be that versatile. And Jalen Walker's got it for sure. He's a tremendous box to edge to box versatility. So again, what that means is he's able to go back and forth. He's just so. I said Swiss Army knife before. He's not. I wouldn't call him that. But as far as being versatile at the linebacker position in terms of whether he's playing the run or rushing the passer, outstanding flexibility. He's a coach's son, like Coach Shield mentioned. That's where he's from, and that's in his blood. He's got a relentless motor. Guy just does not stop. And I like this, a technical block destroyer. It's on tape. You watch it. He handles it at the second level. So much to like about Jalen Walker. And the more we've talked about him, Coach, the more I've looked at him, the more I think this is the kind of player definitely would be a fit for our Detroit Lions and a lot of NFL teams, no question. But he's got some things got to work on. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, he's right. He's raw in coverage. This is not a guy that covers the pass very well. But you know what? That's okay, because I don't know if that's something that you want him doing anyway. He's a rush linebacker. He's a rush linebacker at heart. That's really at his essence. That's what Jalen Walker is. So you're going to go box to edge, with him, because what you're going to have is you'll see that quarterback survey. They'll see Jalen out there, and boom, here comes the point. They're going to point right here and talk here, route combo here, set hit and throw right at him. Well, defenses aren't dumb either. They're just going to either stagger him, and all of a sudden you see things that rotate late, and all of a sudden he's on the edge, and some backer that is good in coverage is back there, and they have it taken care of. So there's a problem solved for that. That's not the end of the world. He has to be a next level block destructor, because that's what he's got to be able to bring to the table when he is playing in the box. Is a guy that can really shrink those, knock through things and be effective on the run that way. Or if he's playing off the rush, off of the edge, and they call into a run, that he's very square and is solvent on a quarterback. that's trying to run the football and cross his face that way, or reduce down and make plays in the run game as a rush linebacker as well. So those are some things that he needs to be able to do as a next level block destructor. He can get a little over aggressive too. He whiffs. He whiffs, especially as a box guy. Again, he is most acclimated, most comfortable as a rush linebacker. And hey, if a quarterback ever escapes you too, that's something that's not a good thing. So that's something that's got to get shorn up for sure. And is he a little one-dimensional? And he's not. I mean, he certainly is not. We've just talked about, we statistically have, his reps. About 92, a little maybe 93% of his reps have been between two different positions. But he's very comfortable as a rush guy. So, and we talked about that. Carter's forte is his cover, right? Stutzman is he's more of a run guy. Well, Jalen is a little bit more of a guy that likes to come off the edge. So he's a work in progress as a box linebacker. Even though he's got all those reps, he's still a work in progress. Can he be NFL scheme versatile? I think he can be. I think he can be. I think there's enough YouTube clips out there for you folks to make that judgment yourself. We encourage you to do that. Or is he just a sub-package guy? Is he a guy that's going to come off the edge? He's not someone you're going to convert to a full-time edge. That's not what he is. He's a linebacker. But he does possess some skill traits, Drew, that do translate to something that the Detroit Lions would like.
Yeah, and I could see him possibly being taken in round 3, late round 3 on day 2. I see him more as a day 3, round 4 guy. I don't think he'll go further back than that. He could even go higher than what I'm saying. But I guess if he's there at that pick 101, that compensatory pick the Lions have, I think they need to be taking a serious look at Jalen Walker. Do you think he might go higher than that, though, Coach?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do. I think there's a very good possibility because I think his skill set and how he produces, again, he could be very much enhanced by what takes place in Indianapolis and also on his pro day in Athens.
Good point.
He could really enhance himself there with some of this bend and just show you how good of a rusher he possibly could be. And some of these other things are coachable. He's a coach's kid, for crying out loud. He's going to be pretty coachable. So, I don't disagree with you. I think there's a really good possibility that he goes a little bit later on Friday than he goes earlier. But I certainly could also see him go early second round just because people really are enthralled with his ability to rush the passer.
We've seen that too. Both ways. We've seen guys project really high, then after the combine and pro day, they're down on day 3. We've seen the opposite happen. So a lot can change this week with the combine. So it's going to be very interesting. Our number 7 prospect, Carson Schweisinger out of UCLA, 6'2", 225-pound junior, coached out of Moore Park, California. So he's a native California guy. And he played at Oaks Christian Academy. That's an illustrious program.
And his kids went to Oak Christian.
Oh, no kidding. There you go. He was a walk-on, which is an eye-opener. And, oh, by the way, he's also a 2024 All-American and a 2024 All-Big Ten player. That still sounds strange saying a UCLA Bruin was an All-Big Ten player, but that's how it is now. Welcome to the 21st century, Drew. 136 tackles in 2024, outstanding season. 8.5 tackles for loss in 2024 and 4 sacks as well. Wow, Coach, that's he had quite a season last year. Let's talk about what you like about him.
Carson Schweisinger, he's you root for a guy like this. I mean, this is what football is really all about, and he's really the last of a dying breed because we're really seeing now at this level of college football where there's really not going to be walk-ons anymore. It's just going to be that's the way the model is now, and there's just so much money involved that really the rosters are going to be shrunk down, and guys like Carson Schweisinger are not going to have those same type of opportunities. So it's really this is the guy you root for. He's turbocharged on the field. I mean, he is absolutely shot out of a cannon from stance to go. He is a blur. He is flying around like a madman. Relentless effort player. And that's probably going to get him latched onto a roster. His effort is just relentless. He's a special teams stalwart. So here's what you're getting with him. He is a top end special teams player, an NFL caliber special teams player. And that's what's going to get him on a roster. That's what's going to get him on a roster. I mean, I'm not going to, we got plenty of time here. We got a little bit less than 10 minutes and we're at 7. So we're doing good. So, that we could stop right there. I mean, really, and go on. But he's a team captain. He's got all those kinds of leadership skills. He's very, at the college level, he's a very angry, aggressive blitzer, which is a great skill to have. That's something that's in his back pocket. Football lifer. He battled to play over at a great high school at Oaks Christian. He, walked on to a Power 5 school and got on the field over at UCLA. He's that lifer. Very fluid, balanced mover. Got to be that way if you're going to be really efficient special teams player. He's got that, a downhill attacker at the college level. Which he's not going to get kind of caught watching the paint dry, as shooters said in Hoosiers.
Yeah, don't let that happen.
Very, very fluid and comfortable in coverage, and at that body type he needs to be, because that'd be a guy he's probably going to be a little bit more of a cover guy than a blitzer. Very technical tackler, which is going to very bode well for him in his special teams work. Drew, he's a walk-on. He's a walk-on. And there are some reasons for that. Talk to us about that a little bit.
So yeah, that hence the Cinderella story, right? But when the clock hits midnight, what's going to happen, right? And I think that's what NFL GMs are going to be asking scouts, right? Is this a lot of flash, or is there a lot of substance here? I think there's a lot of substance there, Coach. But again, those are questions that need to be answered, and I think he'll do that at the combine, his pro day for sure. Very lean frame. So 6'2", 225. Again, we've been talking about some linebackers that are pretty lean. Schlesinger's one of them, no question about that. And not a lot of room to add a lot of bulk there without sacrificing speed. So what you see is what you get, which isn't a bad thing, but again, it is what it is. Doesn't possess the anchor and mass of an NFL linebacker yet, and maybe won't. Again, I don't know. Maybe he can add another 10 pounds to the legs. I don't know, Coach. We're gonna see. But he needs to get pro strong. He's NFL block destruction. Likely is going to be quite a learning curve at times. What does benefit Schlesinger is he's a very aggressive player, and he's got a hell of a motor. So that can help you a lot in those situations. But again, like most of these players, they got to get better at that. He can swing and miss. Now, he's a very technical tackler, no doubt, but he's also a very aggressive blitzer. And if he gets his hands on you, he's going to get you, but sometimes he'll miss. So he's got to watch that. He's got to clean that up a little bit. Sometimes it's prudent to be a little patient, and hopefully that's something that it can get coached up in him. He's been guilty of running past plays. So again, over pursuit. Got to add mass to endure the NFL rigors. And as the clock struck midnight, like I said earlier with Cinderella, we don't know. I don't know if he can add mass, Coach. So this is where I'm like, is he Jalen Reeves-Maben, which is a nice football player, special teams captain in Detroit, but really gets very few rotational reps. Plays on occasion for injury replacement, etc., and plays well. But he's not an everyday linebacker, so I'm not sure Schlesinger is as well. That's why I see him definitely day 3, but I see him probably 4th round though, because of the athletic ability and the fact that, to your point, he might be an outstanding special teams player in the NFL already. What do you think?
Yeah, he's going to get selected on Saturday, and that's his ticket. His special teams are his ticket. That is where he can make a name for himself, and he's going to have to put 10, 15 pounds on. If he wants to be able to play at that level, in that league for 4 or 5 years. But I see Carson Schlesinger as an impact special teams guy. I do. Yeah. I could see that very well. I'm rooting for him. I hope it works out.
Absolutely. Let's talk about our number 8 guy, Coach. Who we got?
Our last featured guy is Demetrius Knight Jr. out of South Carolina, 6'2", 245 senior, 3-star quarterback prospect out of Locust Grove, Georgia. He was the number 30 overall dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. And he played linebacker from the very gets. Because Drew, South Carolina is his third college. He played at Georgia Tech and at Charlotte. He had 82 career tackles at Georgia Tech. He was an all AAC player for Biff Poggi and at Charlotte for the 49ers. An all SEC selection at South Carolina for Shane Beamer. So 229 career tackles. He's got 18 career pass defenses and breakups. So it's another guy that's got some plays and coverage. Drew, what does he do well?
He does a lot of things well, Coach. He's an explosive and very impressive blitzer. So that's key. He does know how to get to the quarterback and is very effective on tape. Take a look at it. Big, heavy hitter, too. And he's a finisher as a tackler. Once he's got you, he's going to drive you into the ground. And he's as devastating straight line closer as there is in a draft, as devastating as there is in a draft. He's an impressive player to watch. He's got some nastiness in him, too. Solid zone cover linebacker. I like that. Big time special teams career at three schools. So you got to like that. Yeah, he's been to 3 different schools, but he excelled everywhere he went. Got to like that. That's huge. He's a mature, natural leader. He's a senior, and yeah, he has transferred. Of course, a lot of players are. Guess what? That's the norm now. That's how it is. But on the field, in the locker room, I mean, you never hear anything bad about the guy, and he's just definitely a leader on the field. You can see it on tape. He rallies the guys. He's a high character individual. He's worked to support his family during the season for DoorDash. I mean, that you got to like that. You got to respect that. There's a lot to like about Demetrius Knight Jr. Coach, what has he got to work on?
Well, he's not going to be working at DoorDash much longer.
No.
And I don't think that, in this nil era, many other guys are. So he's another guy that's the last of a dying breed. That's a really impressive thing. Yeah, he's got a family. He's a young man with a family. He's got to be able to support them. But he's a little stiffer, than some of the other prospects. He doesn't quite have the same fluid moving skills as some of the other people. He's very linear. He's not very creative in his movement, which is really strange because he was such a great dual threat quarterback. But those are some things that have changed over time. He's limited man cover skills, which that's a ding. That's something that's not going to be helpful to him. And you know what? He can be a little patient. We talk about Carr Schlesinger being a little over aggressive. Our friend here can be a little bit too patient. A little high whiff rate. He's got to refine himself as a tackler. Is this guy just a blitzer? Is this guy just a special teams fit? I don't know. But I'm rooting for Demetrius Knight, Drew. I really am.
Yeah, and I think 4th or 5th round, early 5th round maybe, draft slotting where I'm seeing him. But there's a lot of value you can get out of Demetrius Knight Jr. on day 3, no question. Coach, we got our dark horses here. I'm going to rip through my guys. Jack Kaiser, linebacker out of Notre Dame, 6'2", 231-pound senior from Royal Center, Indiana, so he stayed at home. Notre Dame's all-time leader in games played. That's impressive. He's team captain. He was the 2023 Special Teams Player of the Year for the Fighting Irish. He has 275 career tackles, 18 career pass defenses and breakups, 16 career tackles for loss, 6 career sacks, 6 career forced fumbles, 4 career INTs, and over 1,100 career reps as a box linebacker. He's got a hot running motor. He's very durable. 70 games at Notre Dame he played. He's an instinctive guy. He's He's a downhill run stopper. He's an excellent special teamer. He's got to refine get some refinement as a cover linebacker. His frame and size, they're on the edge there. He's almost the same as Carter, I believe, in terms of measurables. So, a concern. Somewhat linear, not as rangy. He's a block destruction. That's going to be a major area of improvement. He's not an elite athlete. He's a worker, Coach. I see him like a Malcolm Rodriguez type guy. And that's why I really think Jack Kaiser could be sneaky good and good value in day 3. Who you got?
Well, I got Jeffrey Bassa, linebacker out of Oregon, 6'2", 235-pound senior from Salt Lake City. He was the 2024 Fiesta Bowl MVP, defensive MVP. He was all Pac-12 for the Ducks. Hampered by an ankle injury this year, so that's why maybe some of his reps were a little bit lower in this past year than he was before, but he had 236 career tackles nonetheless, 14 career tackles for loss, and has over 1,600-plus reps as a box linebacker, so he's played a lot of football. Excellent communicator, vocal communicator, very important trait for a linebacker. He's a very good cover linebacker. For another tremendous special teams experience at a place like Oregon. So this is another guy that can bring a lot of elements to the game, to your team. He's quick, disruptive blitzer. So, twitchy, fluid mover. So this is a guy that's got great movement skills. Does not bring a lot of punch on the run. not a great finisher, not a run plugger at all. So, he gets kind of washed out a little bit. So this is a sub-package guy, special teams player, but a guy that is certainly brings the athleticism to your roster.
That wraps it up, Coach. Just in the nick of time. Great job as always. Again, this linebacking class is deep, and there's some gems there. I think there's some late day 3 gems. There's definitely some guys that are day one, guys. It's a nice linebacking class overall. Not much more to say on my end, Coach. What do you got?
Well, hey, I think the proof's in the pudding. There's a lot of other guys too that we didn't even really get a chance to talk about. But boy, would I be excited if Jihad Campbell was a Detroit Lion.
Oh yeah, definitely can't wait to see that potentially in late April in Green Bay. So for Coach Andy Scheel, I'm Drew. Thanks for watching. Everybody, don't forget to check us out every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on Roku channel for the ESEN network. We'll talk to you next week. Take care, everybody. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Follow us on YouTube so you don't miss an episode at the Sports Peninsula Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter X. Just look for @SportsP Podcast, and follow us to keep up on sports around the great state of Michigan and beyond. You can also catch our show every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on the ESEN network channel as part of Roku. When you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.